Hello, and welcome to EmblemHealth's Care for the Family Caregiver video series. This series is entitled, You Are Not Alone. I'm Greg Johnson. I'm the creator and director for EmblemHealth's Care for the Family Caregiver program. For over a decade, EmblemHealth has been dedicated to bringing attention, awareness, and resources and solutions to the family caregivers. In these conversations, we've looked at family caregiving as an issue. We've looked at it as both words, family and caregiving, to encompass its broader meaning. We've just concluded a three-part series that dealt with maintaining the physical, maintaining the emotional, and maintaining the spiritual. In this particular show, I want to spend a few moments with you talking about a topic that we as Americans rarely talk about. And that's the topic of grief and recovery. I speak to you on many levels, but I particularly speak to you as a family caregiver today. My family, we were three. It was my partner of 41 years and our son, age 40, and myself. Today, our family is one, and that's me. So I've been down this road, and I want to talk about it with you because it's something we don't like to talk about. And yet it's when we talk about it that we in truth can grow through it and come to better understand it. Now, not every family caregiving situation ends in the death of someone. But it is true that we are all born to die. There's a beginning and an end. In our spiritual segment, we talked about the fact we come into life with the gift of life in breath. Ruach Elohim, for those of you who know that phrase, the breath of God. And we live through life until, and what do we say? He breathed his last. So it's from breath to breath and beyond. But this is a topic we don't talk about. Perhaps for years, you have been caring for a loved one. That's what family caregivers do. And then suddenly, that object of your care, your loved one, makes their transition. And you need to walk back out. Gail Sheehy, who is a very dear friend of mine, has written a wonderful book in which she talks about the family caregiving journey as being like the labyrinth, where we walk with our loved one and walk and walk and walk. And there we go this way and we go that way, all the boomerangs of life. We think we've just about settled for the new normal, and suddenly it shifts again. And you get good at that. And you dodge the bullets. And you begin to think, this is going to last forever. But it isn't. We soon learn we're not God. And each of us has a divine appointment. There comes that point where we get to the center of the labyrinth. And the reality is, we need to leave our loved one there, in the arms of the Almighty, the divine, whatever name you choose. But we surrender them. And we need to walk back out of that labyrinth, back into a life that is forever changed. There's no question about that. Now, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has written the great treatise. She happened to have been a very good friend also of mine. And I highly recommend her book on death and dying, with its many stages, and clergy and psychiatrists, psychologists, sociologists. People have used this for for a very, very long time, talking about the many stages. Each is relevant, and each is far more than a brief conversation that we're having. But I want you to know that this part of family caregiving is as important as all of the things you have done previously. Because you're taking care of you. Love never ends. We will always love our loved ones, and they will be with us in love. But for the moment, we are called to get back into life. And it's not until we grow through the grief. I know you think I constantly use grow through, and I do, because I've had to do it. I'm a polio survivor. I'm a multiple stroke survivor. I'm a family caregiver. Would I have signed up for all of that? No. But from each one of them I have learned, and those are only a few. We grow through each. And we know we're not alone. A couple of things I want to share. Now I'm going to be a bit more personal. I have learned that the greatest and most necessary component for life is gratitude. The only person with whom I will spend my entire life is me. I was blessed to have 41 years with my partner, Joe. That's an enormous gift. And Joe was 19 years older than I. They said it wouldn't last. Well, it didn't. He died. And my son. We adopted a young man when he was 20 years old in Indonesia. And he lived in our home over there for 20 years with us until in 2005. Very quickly, painfully, and tragically, bone cancer took him. But the night we got the call telling us that Putra had died, that was his name, Joe and I knelt down and just gave thanks. Thank you for a most precious child, something we never thought we were going to experience. Yes, he was going to take care of us, but that's all right. I think he went on ahead to prepare for Joe. And last year, when Joe died in my arms, I knew he was gone. I've been around death as a clergy person. You do. And I knew he'd died. And so I just held him and gave thanks. Thanks for a life, and thanks for being able to be with him until God took his hand. So for me, thanks has made an enormous difference. And then I want to share with you one of the great blessings that came 2 years after Putra's death. I was in Bali at our home. One of my traditions is early in the morning, 5:30, I go to the Indian Ocean, which is right out in front. I sit up by the ocean. The morning star is still there. The ocean is usually very tranquil. The tide is still out. And then comes the great darkness, slowly the dawn, and the sunrise. And I do that morning after morning. And I like to take time to pray, meditate. And on this particular morning, I had been feeling for several days the grief yet of Putra's death. This is back in 2007. And as I was sitting, he died in 2005, so grief takes time. And I was sitting there, and this was a particularly emotional period. And heaven sent me the greatest gift. Because as I was sitting there, I became aware of a ship coming from my right. They must have had a wonderful party the night before. All the lights were on, and it was a very happy and beautiful ship. And it began to draw my attention as it sailed, and it sailed. And I kept thinking about that ship, and I continued to pray, but each time I looked up, It was making it a little further on its journey. And then it disappeared. The ship was still there. I couldn't see it. Putra was on that ship, I'm convinced, letting me know all is well. All is well. That's the gift. That's the gift in a very ordinary little boat, sailing on a sea. But when we've been willing to attune ourselves to the messages, to the goodness, and for all of us to know forever and ever that love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And that's true for you, and it's true for me. On behalf of EmblemHealth, thank you so much for tuning in. Please remember, you are not alone.